We have a lot to cover in today's video, including some updates on the Toronto Maple Leafs and potentially trading Mitch Marner. Would the Nashville Predators or Vegas Golden Knights be a good fit? We have some new information to suggest they might be very interested in acquiring the top superstar, so we'll see what some trades might look like. Plus, we have some other Leaf rumors around who else might be able to stay or not stay within the Leafs organization. And we also have some updates as well, including a signing in Los Angeles. Lots to update around the Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course, the Boston Bruins survived again. The Oilers picked up a big win over Vancouver. Lots of other updates around the NHL, including some UFA rumors. Lots of updates around the coaching searches around the league and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to cover here today. Let's start first with the recap here from last night's playoff action. A couple of big games. Boston Bruins survived to force a Game 6 against the Florida Panthers. Ultimately, it was a really tightly contested game. Charlie McAvoy scored the winner. Jeremy Swayman was huge for the Bruins yet again, including making a massive save right at the end there against Sam Reinhart. Really a highly intense game. Lots of physicality. It's been a heck of a series for sure. So Boston pushes out to Game 6, and they get an extra couple of days off. They won't play Game 6 till Friday, so I'm not really sure what that means for Captain Brad Marchand, if he'll be able to get back into the lineup or not. But certainly the extra time will certainly benefit him for sure, but we'll have to wait and get updates on that. The Oilers picked up a huge win over Vancouver to even that series 2 games apiece. The Oilers did have a 2-0 lead, and then in the third period, the Canucks again managed to find some life, and they got things tied up. The tying goal came on a very late, I think there was a minute and 48 or 49 seconds left when Brock Besser shot the puck towards the net, and it hit, I believe it was Joshua's skate, and ended up going in. So it got the game tied up. Most of us thought that we're watching or in the arena probably thought it was going to overtime. I know that's what I was thinking. As much as I love the action and the entertainment, I was thinking, oh man, this is going to be a late night. It's going to be another overtime game. But in fact, it wasn't. The Oilers came right back. They got the draw, got into the Canucks zone, and with under a minute to go, Evan Bouchard scores the game-winning goal. The Canucks kind of all collapsed back and gave him lots of room to step in from the line. I know JT Miller kind of took the blame for it. Leon Draisaitl ended up with the puck behind the net, was able to go up the middle of the ice and get the puck to Bouchard, which really shouldn't have been able to happen. And then Bouchard steps in with lots of space to get the shot through. So some, I guess, a little bit of a defensive breakdown, if you want to call it that, for Vancouver, and they take advantage. So now we go back. Elias Pettersson still does not look good, not producing, was called out by Rick Tocchet after the game. Tocchet said that they've got about 5 or 6 guys that are just not getting it done. They're like passengers. He said we need more than 12 guys going to be able to win. And he's really seriously considering some lineup changes. So we'll see. Pettersson did speak to the media today, and it really wasn't overly inspiring. Didn't sound like he had much for answers. Did say he was trying. There's no word, anything saying he's injured. So it's really hard to understand what's going on with him right now. I mean, they've signed him to a long-term deal, and if he's going to struggle to perform in the playoffs, that's a deal that could go south in a hurry. But I guess we'll see if he can get himself out of this funk. They're going to need him for sure to get out of the funk to have a better chance to move on. I mean, considering he hasn't really had a good playoffs and they're in a tied series in round 2, that's pretty good. It goes to show you that they're getting good results and good play elsewhere. But like I said, it's not everybody. It's a lot of the other big names carrying the load, and they could certainly use some more help to have a better chance to move on. Tonight we get the Avalanche trying to avoid elimination as they do battle with the Dallas Stars. They are getting Devon Toews back tonight. For Dallas, Rupe Hintz is out. Radek Faksa checks back in. So we'll see what the Avalanche can do. I'm sure they'll come out guns a-blazing. I know after the last game they were pretty well shell-shocked after getting the news about Val Nichushkin shortly before game time. So I hope they can bounce back and push this series a little bit further. It's been fun watching the Avalanche in the playoffs, but the Dallas Stars are a really, really deep and solid team. So it's going to be tough for them for sure to come back on. But we'll see if McKinnon and company can get the job done. We do have lots of other updates here today as well. There is a dedicated video on another story that we're kind of following now. The Chicago Blackhawks are faced with another lawsuit. Of course, we've seen a lot of issues within the Blackhawks organization in the last several years, including, of course, the Kyle Beach scenario, of course, which was, a cover-up of abuse. There's another player coming forward, which is still nameless right now to the public, that alleges the same sort of thing happened to him. There was the Corey Perry contract termination, which really wasn't justified after we kind of learned. We didn't really learn exactly what happened, but if the league had no problem with it and everything else, it's just kind of weird how they were so serious about it. But at the same time, with this, they're being alleged that a former female employee is accusing him of sexual harassment, fraud, and I think that was the main parts of it here. So if you want to get the full breakdown and full details, check out the other video. We'll see. Essentially, this one, though, to me does not sound like it's I guess as condemning, if you will. To me, there seems to be some holes in the story, so we'll see. I don't know a lot about this person or the one that's alleging the what happened here. So, of course, with the Blackhawks, like I said, it's just hard to give them the benefit of the doubt, right, based on the history and what we've seen there. But certainly not good news and not a good look, the fact that they're facing this lawsuit. We also learned today some updates from the Pittsburgh Penguins around some injuries. Some of their players are going to be having long recoveries over the summer. Chris Letang has surgery on a fractured finger. He's going to be out for about 8 weeks. We also got word on Matt Nieto, had knee surgery for an MCL, 6 to 7 months. And Ludwig's also out about 6 months as well with wrist surgery. So there's 3 guys there with an extended recovery time to get ready for next year. Some coaching updates. Elliot Friedman today talking about the Winnipeg Jets search on his recent podcast episode. In Winnipeg, we know that they were talking to Craig Berube. Another name that he brings up that he feels will be interviewed is Todd Nelson. Todd Nelson at one point was coaching the American Hockey League affiliate for the Blackhawks, where Kevin Cheveldayoff, the GM, used to work before he became the Jets GM. He was an assistant coach there. So, it was quite some time ago, but obviously the two are familiar with each other. And Nelson is I guess you could say an up-and-coming coach. Should be getting an NHL opportunity soon. So don't be surprised if Cheveldayoff would like to speak with him. And Dean Evison's name has been brought up as well, which would be interesting given the rivalry between Winnipeg and Minnesota there. Of course, the former Minnesota bench boss. And, of course, Scott Arniel still very much in the mix as well. The Minnesota Wild today also announced some front office changes for their team. Of course, we know Bill Guerin was kind of in the process of restructuring things. So what's gone down in Minnesota is they promoted Matt Sells, Michael Murray, and Chris Keller to AGM, and Matt Hendricks has become the GM of the AHL team in Iowa. So we kind of knew that was likely coming here sometime soon. So that's how the Minnesota front office will be structured. We also learned today that the Minnesota Wild have parted ways with prospect Vladislav Firstov, who was put through unconditional waivers for the purpose of contract termination. He was in the second year of his 3-year entry-level contract for the rookie deal and has opted to part ways and basically will be heading back to play in another league. So Minnesota parts ways with him. The Mark Messier Award for Leadership has been granted to Rangers captain Jacob Trouba. So he will be the winner of this year's award. Certainly well-respected captain. I know there's a lot of people that don't like some of his big hits, and I will be one that will kind of admit that there's some of his hits I don't like either. But typically, he is a hard-nosed throwback type defenseman that certainly brings a lot of passion for the game and certainly brings a lot of physicality to the game as well. So of course Mark Messier handpicks that award every year. So congrats to Trouba for being recognized by Mark Messier for leadership. It's certainly one of the all-time greats wants to recognize you like that. Certainly it sounds like you're doing something right in his book for sure. We also got word today that the Los Angeles Kings have re-signed goaltender David Rittich. So the Kings are bringing back Rittich on a 1-year deal, 1 year, $1 million. That's not too shocking. I don't expect Cam Talbot to be back. Not sure about Phoenix Copley. I would suspect probably not. But Rittich did a good job, stole the starting job through the playoffs, and for the most part was a good backup option. I don't expect him to get a real solid look at the starting job. I suspect the Kings will likely make some moves to bring in more of a veteran, established starting goaltender if they're able to throughout the offseason. So we'll see. And the goalie will obviously partner with Rittich, but Rittich will be back next year. That much we do know. We also got word of a hiring in Utah, which we talked about the other day, which was not confirmed yet, but the Utah team has hired Chris Armstrong, who was working with Wasserman as a player agent. He was the one actually that negotiated the contract for Kyle Dubas. He's was working as an agent, but primarily not with hockey players, with other different types of athletes. So he's been hired by Ryan Smith to be the head of the hockey operations department for this Utah team. So for right now, we're assuming his title will be that of president of hockey operations. So general manager Bill Armstrong, no relation, will report to Chris Armstrong. So he will be leading the charge here for the new Utah team's hockey operations department. Some UFA talk, some UFA rumors. The Buffalo Sabres not bringing back Zemgus Girgensons or Victor Olofsson. Both players will be testing the market, and Buffalo will not be offering him a new contract, so no huge surprise there. The San Jose Sharks are not bringing back Alexander Barabanov as well, so he'll be looking for a new team and testing free agency as well. And the Winnipeg Jets, according to some reports, may not be bringing back defenseman Brendan Dillon. Now, I've seen some reports suggesting that it's not an absolute given that he doesn't get signed and explores free agency, but right now there's been zero talks, and it sounds like the player's preparing to move on. Not much confidence that the Jets are going to make an offer, but we will see. I know Dylan DeMello's in a similar boat. I do think that there's interest from Winnipeg's side to retain him, but again, right now they're so focused on getting a coach that I don't think they've really put the time and effort into exploring and starting conversations around contract extensions with some of these UFAs to be. So we'll see, but right now Dillon might be a defenseman on the market. If somebody's looking for a veteran, rugged defenseman, if they were experienced there, Dillon might be a nice acquisition for a number of teams that might be looking. Now, as I mentioned as well, we got some news to talk about when it comes about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, we've talked in recent days about Mitch Marner and some different trade options. I also want to talk about some of their UFA stuff as well. An article today from Dave Pagnotta, and actually he did some interviewing as well, so you can hear Pagnotta talk about this through a radio hit as well as an article on his website. Essentially, he says that there is interest from the Leafs to bring back Tyler Bertuzzi, first and foremost amongst the forward groups and the forwards that are UFA. There's also interest to bring back Max Domi. Now, for them to keep both of these players, there very much likely is going to need to be some cap flexibility. We don't know exactly what the number is going to be for each of these players on a longer-term deal if they decide to offer them some term to remain with the Leafs. But certainly a trade that would involve a guy like Marner or one of their big four, without bringing back the full cap hit and with another players and freeing up some money that way, would likely go a long way in helping do that. Many people felt, and it's probably fair to say that the between Domi and Bertuzzi, that it's probably only likely to bring back one. But there's interest on both, and if both players will either sign for a good enough discount or a good enough deal, or if they can free up some cash by making one of these big trades that's been rumored, then that'll be a way to do that. Now, Dave Pagnotta today makes a comment that kind of confirms some of the other things we've talked about. We've heard rumblings about Marner in Nashville, and now Pagnotta says today that he believes that the Nashville Predators is one of those teams that have said to Toronto and Brad Treliving that if you're going to consider trading Mitch Marner, give us a call. We know they want offense. We know they want to bring in a top offensive player if they're able to do that. Marner checks all those boxes. Lots of money for sure, but at the same time, Nashville also has a bit of a tax advantage, so there's that. And at the same time, it'd be a different market, different scenery. Maybe he can, thrive a little bit better when it comes to some of the bigger games like the playoffs. Now, believe that if the Leafs and Predators are going to have conversations around Marner, that the centerpiece coming back would have to be goaltender UC Saros. So I've seen some Leaf fans commenting about this, that they don't want that kind of deal, but the goaltending situation is not secure. Samsonov likely isn't coming back. You got Joe Wall, who there's lots of confidence in, but continues to get hurt time after time after time. You need security. Marner and Saros are both in the same predicament, that they have 1 year left on their deal, and they would need an extension. So both teams can hammer those out. They can either do a sign and trade, or they could make the deal and let the teams work on those extensions over a period of time. You know, there's equal risk on both sides, you could say, right? So at the end of the day, it doesn't mean it would be a one-for-one deal, but they would each be the centerpiece around it. Like I said before, wherever Marner goes, I wouldn't be shocked if a player like Nick Robertson, for example, is attached with him, depending on how much the team that he's going to needs, you know, offensive-type players. Not a given that would happen with the Preds, but it's certainly an option. And, you know, would it be just Saros coming back? Not necessarily. Maybe a defenseman is in there. Maybe it's Dante Fabro. Maybe it's Luke Shen. But they could get themselves an all-star goaltender. Does it make sense for the Predators to sign Saros? I really don't think it does with the emergence of Askarov. I mean, at the very least, if Saros was willing to sign for 1 or 2 years, maybe that makes sense. But he's not going to want to do that. He's going to want term and big money, which is going to be something the Leafs would be able to afford to do and invest a bunch of money into the goaltending if they move out a top forward to do that. So that's how that would work. Now, I've also seen some speculation about the Golden Knights getting involved here as well. And if you look at their cap, again, there's not a lot of room. They'd have to move a fair bit of money out. But who's to say they couldn't put together a package for the Leafs that would get them a good goaltender, a good solid defenseman, and maybe a solid two-way forward? You know, I've seen packages from Vegas that could include Shea Theodore. We know they just signed Noah Hannafin after acquiring him from the Calgary Flames to an 8-year deal. So they've got Petro on a long-term deal. They've got Hannafin. To me, is not Hannafin not pretty much Theodore's replacement? I mean, they like Theodore, sure, but he's going to have to play a lesser role. In the playoffs, you know, Hannafin was getting all the power play time, not Theodore. They certainly view him, I think, as being the stronger option. So, like, to me, it just makes sense that Theodore becomes expendable. A defenseman like Nick Hague also could be expendable. I know they really like Hague and Whitecloud. Alec Martinez likely isn't coming back to Vegas as well. He's likely at least done there. I'm not sure if he'll sign elsewhere or if he'll call it a career. We don't know yet. They got Braden McNabb. You know, like, clearly they've got different types of defensemen. But to me, Theodore becomes expendable with the addition of Hannafin. So there's that. And then you throw in the fact that they could have, you know, a top forward, a two-way forward, Nick Waugh. He's got a great contract. He would really solidify the Leafs' third line. And he has a lot more of an offensive output than a player like a David Kampf or you have a Calle Yarncroke or any of those other players that they've attempted to throw on that third line. Nick Waugh would be a tremendous pickup for the Leafs. Not a big money player, but a big impact player. And goaltending wise, they've got Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson. I don't expect both to be there long. They seem to want to de facto go to Hill since he helped them win the Stanley Cup. Maybe Thompson could solidify the crease in Toronto. I wouldn't be shocked at all if any of these players, if it's not for Marner, I can see Vegas trading, and maybe not Waugh, but Theodore and Thompson will be moved, I think, highly likely is where I would put it. So if they can bring in, you know, they like all the big shiny toys in Vegas. They want to bring in all the big names. So really, you imagine Marner playing with guys like Stone and Eichel and Barbashev, sorry. You know, like, you know, can Jonathan Marchessault stay in Vegas? Or maybe they don't retain him after all, but they get Marner instead, right? Like, hard to say. But either way, Vegas could put together a fantastic package. You know, they have a couple of good prospects, maybe like Brendan Brisson, maybe there's a pick. Like, it can be a combination of things, but they could give them a solid goalie, a top pair defenseman, as well as a solid two-way forward centerman. That sounds like a great deal to me. And cap-wise, I think they would still come out ahead. Wouldn't be drastic because Thompson's contract's pretty cheap. Then you throw in Theodore and Waugh. Like, that's a good deal. I mean, like I said, or the Nashville contract of UC Saros, at least for the first year, they'd save a fortune. Now, Saros is going to want a big raise, but they could afford to do that after, right? So, you know, they've got some serious options here. I know the last time we talked about Marner was the Sportsnet article talking about 4 different trade options that the author in that article thought were reasonable and things that the Leafs should be exploring. There was Calgary, there was Seattle, there was Philadelphia. These are all different, obviously, but Nashville and Vegas to me makes a ton more sense. They have the ability to sign him for less because of the tax advantage. They're both markets where he can live a different kind of quieter lifestyle and maybe thrive in a different situation. Those teams, like Nashville, has a lot of players that he'd be familiar with as well, depending on who was included in a trade. Like he obviously played with O'Reilly for a bit. He played with Luke Shen. There's lots of things there to look at that would just suit him, and I think he could allow him to thrive. So we will see. I will pin the article of Dave Pagnotta from thefourthperiod.com down below so you can check it out. Certainly, like I said, these are not my opinions. These are not me trading Marner to some places like a lot of people like to comment on. This is just stuff that's being discussed. I'm offering it up to you, and we're discussing it. So let me know what you think about the possibility of Marner ending up in Nashville or Vegas and what those trade offers would look like going back. And we'll talk about it further in the comments. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time.